Welcome, everyone. It's time for another episode of Let's Discuss Gaming Podcast Live. Tonight, I go over the latest and biggest stories in video gaming, and I give you my opinions on them. So let's start with the first story, and because I haven't done a Let's Discuss Gaming broadcast in about 2 weeks. So let's see what stories have been going on since the last time that I did this, and I'll give you my thoughts on these stories as always. First one up: Xbox restructures as Microsoft shifts focus back to console gaming. Microsoft is making sweeping changes to Xbox after years of betting heavily on subscriptions and cloud gaming. Following a major restructuring that includes thousands of layoffs and the departure of several game studios, Xbox leadership says the company is preparing for a new direction centered on console players. The changes mark one of the biggest strategic shifts in Xbox history and reflect Microsoft's efforts to regain momentum in an increasingly competitive gaming market. Subscription strategy falls short. Over the past decade, Microsoft invested heavily in building Xbox Game Pass, a subscription service designed to give players access to a large library of games for a monthly fee. The company spent tens of billions of dollars acquiring game studios and publishers, including Activision Blizzard, with the expectation that exclusive content would drive subscription growth. However, the results have reportedly fallen short of expectations. Yeah, didn't they have like 34 or 35 million subscribers and that was a failure? Industry research suggests many gamers purchase only a handful of games each year and spend most of their time playing those same titles rather than constantly trying new releases. That behavior makes subscription services less appealing for a large portion of the gaming audience. Although Game Pass remains one of the industry's largest gaming subscription services, it has not reached the level of growth Microsoft originally anticipated. Thousands of jobs eliminated. As part of its restructuring, Microsoft announced plans to eliminate approximately 3,200 positions across its Xbox division through fiscal year 2027. The company is also separating several development studios from Xbox, with some becoming independent while others seek new ownership. Leadership says the restructuring is intended to streamline operations and better position Xbox for long term success, though the announcement has drawn criticism through the gaming industry due to its impact on developers and support staff. Industry wide challenges continue. Microsoft is not alone in facing difficult market conditions. Since the surge in gaming during the COVID-19 pandemic, many publishers have struggled to maintain the rapid growth they experienced during that period. Players continue spending much of their gaming time on established franchises and live service titles, leaving less room for newer intellectual properties to gain traction, and lesser known live service titles that are trying to be born. As development costs continue rising, publishers have become increasingly cautious about investing in large scale projects without clear commercial potential. Activision acquisition hasn't solved everything. And okay, after I read this paragraph, I'm gonna have to stop, just because I got a lot to say about that. Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard was expected to strengthen Xbox's first-party lineup and accelerate Game Pass growth, and it could have. While the purchase significantly expanded Microsoft's portfolio with franchises such as Call of Duty, Diablo, and World of Warcraft, reports indicate that the acquisition has not produced the subscription growth many analysts expected. The situation has led some observers to question whether simply owning more studios is enough to drive long term success in today's gaming market. Okay, I have to say, is owning more studios enough to survive in today's market? Not when you're not doing anything with those studios. Oh, This is one of the things, just one of them, that Phil Spencer did that made me lose my mind when I heard about it. I'll go through it again. Me and Dr. Games 101, we were excited when we heard about the acquisition, and we were excited when we heard that it went through, because what we said was, you got the True Crime series. I guess you can throw Sleeping Dogs in there because that was supposed to be a reboot of the True Crime series. You got Tony Hawk. You had about 20 other franchises that Microsoft finally had access to. And we thought, I can't wait till True Crime Streets of New York is on Game Pass. I can't wait till the Tony Hawk 1 and 2 is on Game Pass. I can't wait till, and none of that happened. Phil Spencer, in his infinite wisdom, thought it was worth purchasing. It was worth $75.6 billion or $1 million. Was it billion or million? I don't even remember at this point. Um, but he thought it was worth all that. Thought it was worth tens of millions, I think it was, to put Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 reboot on Game Pass, and then to put Black Ops 7 on Game Pass. No, he should have he should have never gotten the acquisition if it was just to pretend the rest of Call of Duty didn't matter and to just start adding newer games to Game Pass. Because I hate to say it, Call of Duty, it's doesn't have the same appeal that it once did. Modern Warfare 2, the original, the first Black Ops, that era, in my mind, in my opinion, is when Call of Duty was had the most support, when Call of Duty was the strongest. Dr. Games 101 said, what about Call of Duty 2, the big red one, Call of Duty 3, Call of Duty 4, the first Modern Warfare? He wanted to see those games on Game Pass, and you got none of that. So, yeah, if you buy all these studios and then you just hoard them like mine, 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 that's not, you don't make money that way. So, yeah, owning studios just for the sake of owning them is not a way where you're going to be able to make money back on those properties because you're not doing anything with those properties. But I'll go back. Let's continue. A return to console gaming. Xbox CEO Asher Sharma has outlined a different vision for Microsoft's gaming future. Well, it couldn't be the same one that Phil Spencer thought he should do because that plan was failing, and I can't believe that someone like me could see how much that plan was gonna fail, and Phil Spencer couldn't. Rather than focusing primarily on subscription growth, the company intends to place greater emphasis on traditional console gaming and rebuilding its hardware business. A key part of that strategy is the development of Microsoft's next generation gaming system, currently known by its reported codename Project Helix. The console is expected to arrive later this decade and is rumored to combine elements of both a traditional gaming console and a Windows based PC. Microsoft hopes the new hardware will help strengthen Xbox's position ahead of the next console generation. Hardware challenges remain. Developing new gaming hardware has become increasingly difficult due to rising manufacturing costs. Demand for advanced memory chips, driven largely by the rapid expansion of artificial intelligence technologies, has pushed component prices significantly higher. These increased production costs could affect the design, pricing, and release plans for future gaming hardware across the industry. Microsoft is not the only company dealing with these challenges as hardware manufacturers continue adjusting their plans in response to changing market conditions. Looking towards the future, another major milestone on the horizon is the eventual release of Grand Theft Auto 6, one of the most anticipated games in gaming history. Large blockbuster releases often drive console sales, making the game's launch an important opportunity for every major platform holder. Microsoft will likely hope that its next generation strategy and future hardware lineup are well positioned to capitalize on major releases like GTA 6. Can Xbox turn things around? The recent restructuring represents a major turning point for Microsoft's gaming division. After years of prioritizing subscriptions and studio acquisitions, Xbox appears to be shifting its attention back towards console hardware and traditional game sales. Whether that strategy succeeds will depend on several factors, including consumer demand, the health of the gaming market, and Microsoft's ability to deliver compelling exclusive games. For now, Xbox remains in the middle of a significant transformation, and the company's next few years could determine the direction of one of gaming's biggest brands for the next generation. Yeah, so this actually, with what Sony's doing, this actually Microsoft could use that to advantage by not going completely digital like Sony is. Although I think that's a pipe dream. I think Microsoft is going to go digital, completely digital. They're just waiting to see how much more backlash Sony has to deal with. I wouldn't be surprised in 5 years if Microsoft and Nintendo go that way. But one way they could capitalize on the backlash Sony is dealing with is by saying, "Listen, we're not going that way. This isn't 2013. We're not going to try that again. If Sony wants to go that way, come over to Xbox." You know how many people they could bring over to Xbox if someone came out and just said, "Yeah, you don't have to worry about us going all digital or only did only digital." That would get a lot of people that were willing to at least give Xbox a chance. Um, so there's that. There's um, so they could, you know, but also they got to cut costs. All these studios, I said what I would have done, and I'll tell it right now. If I was Phil Spencer and the Activision Blizzard merger had gone through, I probably would have like fired up uh, Microsoft Teams or some conference software and told every studio, I want to see the franchises you own. I want to see the last game that was made, and I want to see if it was a net profit or if it was a loss. And I want that for every IP you own. And then based on those numbers, I would have said either we're going to make a reboot, we're going to make a sequel, or we're going to make a new IP. Or some studios might have to be closed. And again, I don't know how I could have thought of this, and Phil Spencer could not. Um, so yeah, you can't just have studios just for the sake of owning them. That doesn't bring in money. That's really a way to lose money instead of making money. Um, I don't mean to continue bashing Phil Spencer, but again, with Xbox being in the shape it's in, that's because of the way he ran it for the past few years, and the years that I criticized him on. So, I hope that Asha Sharma can turn Xbox around. I will say I don't think she can do any worse than Phil Spencer was doing in his last few years. So at least there's that. But then again, never say never. Um, so that's one thing about uh, Xbox possible future. But yeah, they really just if you have to cut studios or sell them off or let them go out on their own, that's what you're gonna have to do. Um, it sucks that they have to do that, but they can't they can't continue to uh, hemorrhage money um, hanging on to these studios, especially with nothing being done by them. So, hopefully Asha Sharma can turn things around. Hopefully the Helix isn't going to be $1,000 gaming console or $1,000+ gaming console when it comes out, whenever it does. But um, and the thing is with Asha Sharma wanting things, the way I've heard her talk in interviews and seen like in press interviews, I don't think Helix will if it can be helped. What I mean is, like, Asha Sharma has talked about how, when it came to Game Pass, for example, and the ultimate tier was like $30 a month or 29.99, whichever you want to say, and she realized, yeah, a lot of people can't afford that. So we have to lower the price for Game Pass Ultimate, but we also have to take something away because we can't just give everything we were giving away for 30 for you know for nearly a third off every month. Um, and that was the decision to remove Call of Duty on day one. As far as like most people don't try out new games, they just stick like to the few that they would have purchased, but instead that they were paying a monthly subscription for. I do believe that's most people. That was definitely. I don't want to say that was definitely me when I had Game Pass because I did my best to try out new games that I would have never thought of purchasing or even giving a chance because they're free. They're there. Just download them and play them. And if I hate it, I can always stop playing it 5, 10, 15 minutes later and download something else. So but again, routines are easier than exploring. Routines are easier than trying something that you're not sure if you're gonna like it. Um, so I understand why they were saying, yeah, people don't um, they don't try out a whole vast library. They got their 5, 10, or however many games, and they stick to them. So yeah, that's what I think about Xbox restructuring. And like I said, it had to be. They said they're going to lay off 3,200 employees by fiscal year 27. And like I said, it just something that had to be done. It's something that how much longer? I mean, if they just continue to kick the can down the road, how much longer was Xbox really going to survive? Um, on the Let's Discuss Gaming podcast I did with Dr. Games 101, I told him, if Phil Spencer had come to me and said, James, I need your help. Can you help me turn around Xbox um, and stop taking L's? I would have told Phil Spencer to his face, absolutely not. You've devalued the Xbox name so much. I don't think anyone can do it. I don't think anyone can help turn Xbox around. So, and Asher Sharma, Matt Booty, whoever else is helping them, um, they got their work cut out for them. Um, I'm happy that they're trying, but it's not going to be easy. And I mean, so what will Xbox hold for the next 5 years, 10 years? We don't know, but I do think there is a way. Will Xbox capitalize on that or be able to capitalize on that? Only time will tell. We just have to wait and see what happens. Time for the next story. Gaming industry layoffs continue as developers face growing uncertainty. While Microsoft's Xbox restructuring has dominated recent gaming headlines, layoffs continue to impact studios across the entire industry. From major publishers to smaller independent developers, companies are cutting staff as they attempt to manage rising development costs, changing consumer habits, and uncertain financial returns. The latest example comes from 1047 Games, the studio behind the popular arena shooter Splitgate, which has reportedly conducted another round of layoffs as part of ongoing efforts to adjust its operations. Another studio hit by industry wide cuts. 1047 Games joins a growing list of developers affected by workforce reductions over the past several years. The studio gained attention with the original Splitgate, a free to play multiplayer shooter that combined traditional arena combat with portal based gameplay. The game's success led to significant investment and the development of Splitgate 2, which aimed to expand on the original's foundation. However, like many studios attempting to compete in today's crowded gaming market, 1047 Games has faced challenges maintaining momentum while managing the cost associated with modern game development. The latest layoffs highlight the workforce reductions are not limited to major corporations like Microsoft, Sony, or Electronic Arts. Smaller studios are also being forced to reevaluate their plans and budgets. The AAA development problem. The continuing layoffs have reignited debate over whether the current AAA gaming model is sustainable. Honestly, I don't think it is, not when you got games that have hundreds of millions of dollars as a budget. Modern blockbuster games require enormous investments, with development budgets often reaching hundreds of millions of dollars before marketing expenses are even considered. See? While successful releases can generate massive profits, the risk has increased significantly. A game can sell millions of copies and still fail to meet a publisher's expectations if it does not recover its escalating production costs. This pressure has encouraged companies to pursue safer strategies, including sequels, established franchises, remakes, and live service games designed to generate long term revenue. The live service gamble. The rest of live service gaming has also changed how publishers approach development. Yeah, everybody thinks live service gaming is going to be their golden goose. Companies have invested heavily in games designed to keep players engaged for years through regular updates, seasonal content, and in game purchases. However, the market has become increasingly difficult to break into. Players often dedicate most of their time to a small number of successful games, making it harder for new live service titles to attract and retain audiences. I gotta stop right there. Um, it's not always successful games, I don't think. 100% of the time, it's just what people stick to. And let me explain. Uh, let me use myself for example. I have a Sega CD. I have Sewer Shark in my Sega CD. That was a pack-in game for the Sega CD, but most people would not say that game is a success or is even liked by many people. It has a small crowd of people who like playing that game, myself included. But that's so since that's not a successful game, and while the field might be small people who do enjoy playing it, I don't. It shows that not everyone sticks to successful games because successful games that also varies in definition to every different person. What you might consider successful, someone else might consider a failure. Um, Another one, before they Splatterhouse. I don't think anyone would say Splatterhouse was a success, but that game was still good. I, you know, and most of the team at NAPCO was let go after Splatterhouse came out because of how poorly it performed. But that doesn't mean the game was bad. But that's still a game that I enjoyed playing when it came out in 2012 or whatever year it was. So this whole thing about people sticking to successful games, that's such a broad term. Anyone could say anything was successful, and like I said, there's two games there that weren't successful, either when it first came out or later on, but they still have either a niche following or even smaller than a niche following of people that will still play them. Now you're probably saying, well, he was talking about most players. Yeah, but there's also, just because it's a niche following or smaller than that, doesn't mean there's people that doesn't mean that only successful games that were deemed a success when they first came out are the only ones people play. That's the point I'm trying to make. Um, the failure of several high-profile projects has caused publishers to reconsider whether chasing the next major online hit is worth the financial risk. Developers question the future. Many developers and industry analysts believe the current rate of layoffs reflects deeper problems within the gaming business. The, the pandemic era boom created unrealistic expectations as companies expanded teams and invested heavily to meet increased demand. As player spending returned to more normal levels, many studios found themselves with larger workforces and higher operating costs. The result has been a difficult adjustment period, with employees often facing the consequence of decisions made at the corporate level, a changing industry. Despite the changes, the gaming industry remains one of the largest entertainment markets in the world. Successful releases continue to generate billions of dollars, independent developers continue finding audiences, and new technologies are creating opportunities for innovation. However, the current environment suggests that publishers may need to rethink how games are funded and developed. Lower risk projects, more realistic budgets, definitely that one, and sustainable development schedules could become increasingly important as companies attempt to avoid the cycle of rapid expansion followed by mass layoffs. What comes next? The layoffs affecting Xbox, 1047 Games, and countless other studios raise larger questions about the future of game development. Are modern AAA budgets simply too high? Yes. Has the industry become too dependent on blockbuster franchises and live service models? Yes. Can publishers find a balance between profitability and supporting the talented developers who create these games? I don't know if they will, but they could. For now, the industry remains in a period of transition, As companies continue adjusting to a post-pandemic market, one thing is clear. The challenges facing game developers extend far beyond any single publisher or platform. So, yes, modern AAA budgets are definitely too high. If you create a game, just think about this. If you create a game and and it sells millions of copies and it still fails, you have to rethink. You have to rethink how much was spent on that game. Maybe it should have been broken up into two, three, four, five games to mitigate costs or lower costs. That way you only make part one. That way you only make part one, and part two only gets made if part one is a success. Um, I mean, you probably wouldn't expect me to say that because Bloodstone 007 for PS3 and Xbox 360, I love that game, but we're never going to see the sequel to wrap up the story that started in that game because Bloodstone 007 didn't perform well enough. Again, another game that I enjoyed playing start to finish that that wasn't a success. Um, so uh, you know, but if you're making a game and you got like a 400, 500, $600 million budget, um, that's not going to be sustainable because then you're thinking, okay, well, we got to sell 10, 20 million copies. Right there, that means no, your project is doomed for failure. So yeah, definitely budgets are too high. Me and Dr. Games 101 talked about this with Concord when we heard the budget was $400 million. I was like, all right, how much of that money is going to blow? How much of that money is going to strippers? How much did people actually work on that game and not just enjoy the blow and strippers that were that were probably in the office waiting for the development team? Yeah, because Concord $400 million, that was almost double the budget of Grand Theft Auto 5. And Grand Theft Auto 5 had one of the biggest budgets in video games that people had ever seen at that or heard about at that time. Ranging anywhere from 165 million to 250 million dollars. So Concord comes along and they have a budget of $400 million, and it looks like the game was barely worked on at all. And you cannot tell me I don't even believe $400,000 of work went into Concord. Um, so that's my thought on that. Has the industry become too dependent on blockbuster franchises and live service models? Not when it comes to live service models, it's not dependent on them. Live service models is companies want to make games so they can continue getting revenue for months and years after the game comes out. And everyone says, look at Fortnite, look at Apex Legends, look at PUBG. These games, they continue to bring in money year after year. Although Fortnite's had its own problems of in 2025, and people are like, we can make our own and continue to get money. No, those games offered something that wasn't widely available before then. Making a Fortnite clone or Apex Legends clone or a PUBG clone or whatever, and then expecting that to be your golden goose that's again, I think that's a recipe for failure. You're setting yourself up for failure at that point. Um, and live service games. Don't forget when Sony said that like they were gonna start. They wanted to release 10 different live service games like over the next 10 years, starting in 2025, and then they canceled like five of them before people even knew what the concept was going to be. It's like how many people can even afford five to spend money on 5 different live service games, let alone 10? And then also, what are these live service games that you're creating offering that no other game offers that people want? No one ever answered that question. So I don't think it's dependent on live service games. I think people just not even developers, but executives see it as low work, massive profits, low work, high profits, because people are just going to keep spending and spending and spending. Yeah, well, for people to keep spending and spending and spending, they have to have a reason to be able to spend. B, make sure they can still keep their lights on and keep food in their fridge before they spend on your game. So, I think too many people have figured, live service would be a way to keep revenue coming in no matter what. And it's like, no, that's to keep revenue coming in and make a live service game a success. It's like winning the lottery. Yeah, sure, people won the lottery. Sure, people won Powerball. That doesn't mean you are. So I think that's the problem with live service games. As far as blockbuster franchises becoming reliant on that, yeah, but I also think there's some laziness in that too. Crash Bandicoot 4 did not work out too well, despite having three previous games. I don't know how well Crash Bandicoot 3 was. I never got to play that, but I do have the first two on PlayStation. So, and how Crash Bandicoot 4 performed, that killed what was going to be Crash 5. So, people think, I think uh, one similarity between both types of games is whether it's sequels or live service. People think, oh, it's gonna succeed no matter what. People love Crash Bandicoot. People love Spyro the Dragon. People love. Uh, I'm trying to think of ongoing game franchises, not ones that have ended. People love this. People love that. They're gonna buy it no matter what. No, um, that's not gonna happen. And live service games. People think, oh, well, people love live service games, so they'll love ours. No. Look at Fortnite. People love Fortnite, and they're having problems and had to cut staff. So if they're having problems, what makes you think you're going to come in and make your live service game a success? I think it's people thinking those options are the only available ones for success, but they do it. But they think just just because if they go with one of those, they can be as lazy as they want. And I'm talking about executives here. Who cares? Just put it, make a game. Who cares if it works? Make it over about a popular franchise, and it'll sell. Yeah, that works so great for Suicide Squad. Kill the Justice League. Need I say more? uh, Next. Critically acclaimed Zero Parade's developer ZAUM announces layoffs. The gaming industry's ongoing wave of layoffs has reached another studio, with ZAUM, the developer behind Zero Parades for Dead Spies, announcing workforce reduction despite positive reviews for its latest release. The studio confirmed that it has issued redundancy notices or warnings of potential job losses to as many as 32 employees, citing financial challenges surrounding the game's commercial performance. Strong reviews, but not enough sales. ZAUM shared the news on July 17th, explaining that while Zero Parades for Dead Spies, which I've never heard of before today, received critical praise, the game's sales performance did not allow the studio to maintain its current team size. In a statement posted on Blue Sky, okay, I cannot, I cannot think any lower of you than I already do when I read that. The developer acknowledged that the decision was difficult but necessary as the company adjusts its future plans. The studio said it has continued working with representatives from the ZAUM Workers Alliance through the process and emphasized that the layoffs would not change its creative goals. This changes the shape of ZAUM, but not its purpose, the studio stated, adding that its commitment to maintaining high artistic standards remains unchanged. A follow up to Disco Elysium. Zero Parades for Dead Spies is ZAUM's second major release following the success of Disco Elysium, the critically acclaimed 2019 role-playing game that earned widespread praise for its writing, storytelling, and unique approach to the RPG genre. Released in May 26 on PC with a PlayStation 5 version planned later in the year, Zero Parades is an isometric espionage RPG centered around Herschel Wilk, a female intelligence operative investigating mysteries connected to her own troubled history. Just one moment. Gotta get my nose has been running for some reason. The game received strong reviews from critics, with praise directed towards narrative, atmosphere, and role playing mechanics. It earned an 8 out of 10 review score from GameSpot and currently holds an 83 rating on Metacritic. Despite that critical reception, the game's performance was apparently not enough to support the studio's existing workforce. Another example of industry pressure. ZAUM's layoffs are the latest example of the difficult environment facing game developers in 2026. Studios across the industry have continued cutting jobs as companies deal with rising development costs, changing consumer spending habits, and increased pressure to deliver profitable releases. Earlier this year, Microsoft announced a major restructuring of its Xbox division, resulting in thousands of job cuts and changes to several studios. Other developers have also faced similar challenges. Full Circle, the studio behind the upcoming Skate reboot, experienced layoffs earlier this year, while Riot Games reduced staff at its fighting game team working on 2XKO. Sony also closed Bluepoint Games, the studio known for acclaimed remakes such as Demon Souls and Shadow of the Colossus. The growing challenge of modern game development. ZAUM's situation highlights a larger issue affecting the industry. Critical success does not always translate into financial stability. Developing modern games requires larger teams, longer production schedules, and significantly higher budgets than in previous generations. As a result, even well reviewed games can struggle if they fail to reach sales expectations. The situation has raised concerns among developers and players about whether the current approach to game development is sustainable. While publishers continue investing in major franchises and blockbuster releases, smaller studios often face greater risk when attempting to create original experiences. A difficult time for developers. For players, the continued layoffs represent more than just business decisions. They represent the loss of experienced developers, artists, writers, and designers who help create the games audiences enjoy. As studios like ZAUM attempt to adapt, the industry faces difficult questions about balancing financial expectations with creative ambition. For now, Zero Parades may stand as another reminder of the challenges facing game development. A project can earn strong reviews, connect with critics, and still struggle to provide the stability studios need to survive. Okay, with what they were saying, I do have one question. Uh, they say budgets need to be bigger, development teams need to be bigger, things like that. Then how do independent studios succeed? There's no way. I don't think any independent game has a six-figure budget for video games to make their next video game or their first video game. So, and they obviously don't have huge development teams because it's an indie studio or a small studio. So how are they succeeding and making and not every independent studio is being wiped out? That's uh, they didn't answer that. Honestly, I never even heard of this new game of theirs that, like I said, um, Disco Elysium. I don't even remember hearing much about that one. I may have seen it like on Game Pass, if I'm not mistaken, but I never played it, so I can't comment, on those games. Um, but yeah, uh, honestly, a lot of teams just grew too fast, because of COVID, and people that were stuck at home playing video games are no longer stuck at home if they don't want to be. So they can go out and do what they were originally going to do, meaning people playing games less, or at least those people are playing games less. Like people who got a Nintendo, the what is it, the NES Classic? they didn't need any more games. They had 20 or 40 of their favorites, I think 20, and they were like, "This is good." I, you know, and for the little time that they played games, maybe they had a little more time because of the pandemic. That was enough to hold them over. But a lot of those people didn't stick around once restrictions were lifted. So yeah, but I just think studios just are growing too. They grew too fast. And when your budget for a video game is six figures to make the video game, especially if it's in the high six figures, that's definitely not sustainable. So yeah, it sucks because I hate to hear about people losing their jobs, but at the same time, it's you got to reevaluate your business. If your business is not, whether it's a huge studio like Microsoft or something like this studio, if business is not working, if you're in the red instead of in the black, you gotta change course. Let's time for the next story. Bethesda Montreal union accuses Xbox of offering minimum severance after layoffs. Bethesda Game Studio, excuse me. Bethesda Game Studios' Montreal office is at the center of a growing labor dispute after its union accused Xbox and Microsoft of providing laid off employees with only the minimum severance required by law while ending health insurance benefits immediately. The controversy surfaced on July 17th, the same day Bethesda unveiled new details about the future of several of its biggest franchises, including Fallout, The Elder Scrolls, and Starfield. According to the 1BGS Bethesda Game Studios Union, employees affected by the recent layoffs received disappointing news about their compensation despite Microsoft's continued investment in those franchises. Union claims layoff terms changed. In a statement shared on Blue Sky, again, 1BGS alleged that workers in Montreal have been treated unfairly compared to other employees impacted by Microsoft's restructuring. The union said that when layoffs were first announced on July 6, affected employees in both the United States and Canada were informed during a company video that they would remain employed until September, while severance packages were negotiated with union representatives. According to the union, that plan changed on July 17th. It claims Bethesda sent termination letters by email, informing laid off Montreal employees that would instead only receive the minimum severance required under Canadian law without completing negotiations with the union. Employees reportedly receive minimum benefits. The union says the revised packages provide approximately 8 weeks of pay in place of the legally required notice period, along with payment for unused vacation time and any other benefits required by law. In addition to the reduced severance, 1BGS claims affected employees immediately lost access to their employer provided health insurance benefits. Union representatives argued that the sudden changes removed the additional security employees believed they had following the initial layoff announcement. Legal complaint filed. In response, 1BGS announced that it has filed another legal complaint against Bethesda, alleging the company violated Canadian labor laws by failing to properly negotiate with the union before finalizing the layoffs. The organization criticized Xbox and Bethesda leadership, arguing that employees helped build successful franchises while receiving little support after losing their jobs. The union stated that workers should not be forced to bear the consequences of management's business decisions and pledged to continue challenging the company's actions. Bethesda developer speaks out. Bethesda lead character artist Ben Carno also commented publicly on the situation, sharing the union statement on Blue Sky. I cannot think any less of you than I already do. Carnow alleged that Microsoft did not fulfill its legal obligation to negotiate with the Montreal union before implementing the layoffs and criticized the immediate loss of employee health care coverage. His comments added further attention to the dispute as discussions surrounding Microsoft's restructuring continue. Calls for greater accountability. The union also directed supporters to Microsoft's Player Voice feedback platform, where it outlined several proposals aimed at improving accountability within Xbox. Among the recommendations were ending large scale layoffs, increasing transparency with both employees and players, and preventing executives from receiving bonuses during periods of workforce reductions. The proposals came after Microsoft had eliminated thousands of gaming related jobs over the past several years as part of broader restructuring efforts. Fallout announcement draws criticism. The timing of Bethesda's Fallout roadmap announcement has also drawn criticism from labor organizations. The United Video Game Workers argued, or the United Video Game Workers CWA, argued that highlighting future projects on the same day as controversial layoff developments shifted public attention away from employees affected by the cuts. The organization questioned how Bethesda and Obsidian Entertainment would successfully deliver major projects such as Fallout 5 and The Elder Scrolls 6 after both studios reportedly lost significant numbers of employees during Microsoft's restructuring. As the legal dispute continues, the situation has become another example of the growing tension between major game publishers and organized labor, particularly as the industry continues to grapple with widespread layoffs and studio restructuring. Okay, so I don't know what the requirement is either in America or Canada if someone's going to be laid off. What the agreement is. You know, how many weeks of pay that you still get when you leave. Um, what the benefits are. I don't know anything about that, so I really can't talk about that. With that being said, the Fallout maybe plans are going to change. Who's to say Fallout 5 and the Elder Scrolls 6 are even still are even going to come out now? The new Fallout game everyone was talking about was going to be a sequel to New Vegas because the creative director from the first New Vegas was coming back for that game. So obviously he was coming back to make a sequel to the game that he helped create that was such a success in the first place. Fallout 5, I never heard anything being discussed about that. The Elder Scrolls 6, while people were expecting it after Skyrim, again, nothing was ever confirmed that there was going to be a sixth game. Uh, People just assumed there was going to be a sixth game, and maybe there were plans to bring those games to reality. Maybe those plans changed, um, but at the same time, you know, it really depends on like they said that they gave them the minimum requirement, and I think the biggest problem was the health insurance problem. That health insurance was canceled immediately. So again, I really don't have much to say just because I don't know what the minimum severance packages requirement by law is in either in U.S. or Canada. But like I said, many studios are unfortunately dealing with this. These studios are losing money. Maybe they should have kept the original agreement in place, so that they wouldn't be dealing with this. Because the last thing they need is a lawsuit um, that's going to cost even more money. So I mean, that was be pretty nice. You're getting fired in June, but you're still going to be paid throughout September, as well as any vacation time you had saved. That's also going to be cashed in. Uh, so that sounds like an awesome deal. Um, I don't know if Microsoft or Bethesda was still offering that because they said the plans changed. So, we'll just have to see uh, how things go and see if Microsoft or Bethesda um, suffer legal ramifications or backlash from letting these workers go. Time for the next story. Xbox console sale rise as PlayStation 5 and Nintendo Switch 2 see year-over-year declines. Despite ongoing restructuring within Microsoft's gaming division, Xbox hardware sales appear to be showing signs of recovery. New sales data indicates that Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S consoles posted significant year over year growth in the United States, outperforming expectations during a challenging period for the company. The increase comes as Microsoft continues to reshape its Xbox business through leadership changes, studio restructuring, and a renewed focus on its long-term gaming strategy. Xbox hardware sales more than doubled. According to industry data from Circana, Xbox Series X and Series S console sales more than doubled in the US compared to the same period last year. While the percentage increase is substantial, Xbox still trails both Sony and Nintendo in total hardware sales. Nintendo Switch 2 remained the best selling console for the month in both units sold and total revenue generated, with PlayStation 5 finishing second. Even so, the strong year over year growth represents a positive development for Xbox after several years of slower hardware momentum. PlayStation and Nintendo experienced declines. Although Xbox posted impressive growth, both of its competitors recorded lower hardware sales than they did a year ago. Nintendo Switch 2 experienced the steepest decline, with sales falling by 79% year over year. However, the comparison comes with an important caveat. The Switch 2 launched in June 2025, resulting in exceptionally high launch month sales driven by pre orders and limited retail inventory. As a result, matching those numbers 1 year later was always going to be difficult. PlayStation 5 sales also declined, dropping 19% compared to the previous year. Sony recently increased PS5 console prices in several markets, a move that may have contributed to slowing hardware demand. Price increase may have helped Xbox. Microsoft has also announced higher prices for Xbox Series consoles, but those increases had not yet taken effect during the reporting period. With the new pricing scheduled to begin on August 1st, many consumers may have chosen to purchase Xbox hardware before prices increased, potentially giving June and July sales an additional boost. Whether that momentum continues after the higher prices go into effect remains to be seen. Xbox still faces major challenges. The positive sales figures arrived during one of the most significant transitions in Xbox history. Microsoft recently announced plans to eliminate thousands of jobs across its gaming division while restructuring several parts of the business. The company had also adjusted its publishing strategy and continues investing heavily in major franchises such as Halo, Fallout, and The Elder Scrolls. Although hardware sales are improving, Xbox still faces the challenge of rebuilding consumer confidence while navigating broader changes within the organization. Questions surround the next generation. The recent hardware data also arrives amid growing uncertainty about the future of the console market. Microsoft has acknowledged that rising component costs may affect plans for its next generation hardware, reportedly named Project Helix. Early expectations call for a premium hybrid system combining console and PC capabilities, but those plans could evolve depending on manufacturing costs and market conditions. Reports have also suggested Sony may be reevaluating the timing of its next generation PlayStation for similar reasons, as hardware production remains more expensive than many companies anticipated. These factors could extend the lifespan of the current console generation beyond what many players initially expected. Current generation continues to grow. For gamers, a longer console generation could provide additional value from existing hardware. Developers continue releasing major titles across Xbox Series, PlayStation 5, and Nintendo Switch 2, meaning players are unlikely to want to have new experiences anytime soon. While Microsoft's broader gaming business remains in the middle of a major transformation, the latest sales figures suggest that interest in Xbox hardware has not disappeared. Whether this resurgence represents a temporary spike driven by upcoming price increases or the beginning of a longer term recovery will become clearer in the months ahead. Yeah, I think one big aspect or one big what's the word I'm looking for condition that led to these Xbox console sales improving is with people no longer saying, "What do I need an Xbox for? I'll just buy it if I want a game. I'll just buy it on play. I'll just buy a PlayStation console because they're moving everything there." And Asha Sharma said, "We're gonna stop that." Halo's not going to PlayStation. Gears of War is not going to PlayStation. Um, so I think that led to I think that's one of the conditions, or one of the reasons that sales on consoles have gone up for Xbox. The second is also, in addition, uh, I think just Asha Sharma, the way she's running the company, it it sure instills a lot more confidence than the way Phil Spencer was running the company. So I think people, not just me, but other people, see, like, maybe Xbox isn't headed for destruction. Maybe the ship can be turned around, and Xbox is not the Titanic. Um, so I think also that I think the price changes also um, were uh, were another reason that the consoles have uh, for the sales of the consoles, because fear of missing out. They didn't want People didn't want to miss out on the old price, so they figured if they could afford it, get it now before prices go up. So I think those are a few of the reasons that the sale of Xbox consoles. PlayStation, I don't know what to say about PlayStation. I don't think, actually, it probably would not have affected June, but July, they did make the announcement, no more physical games after 2028. So people might have been thinking with PlayStation, well, but that's the thing. I don't know if that would have, even if PlayStation doesn't reverse course, that doesn't mean right now, unless people just are saying, I'm not going to support PlayStation going all digital. So if they want to go all digital, I revoke any support from me, that I was offering, whether it's buying their hardware, buying their subscriptions, buying, so that might that might be reason. As far as Nintendo Switch, I have no idea, other than maybe people, if they wanted one, they purchased one by now. That's all I can think about the Switch too, because it's been out for about, we're coming, what, 15 months since the Switch 2 came out. So I think, while obviously websites were crashing when the pre-orders went live, I'm thinking anyone who got one already was going to get one. Well, and yes, there are people that couldn't afford it yet. I'm not saying they're not going to sell any more consoles. I'm just saying people who wanted it right away and weren't waiting for, a bunch of games that they had to have the Switch 2 for. Obviously, they purchased it right now. But really, what big reasons is there to get a Switch 2? I couldn't name any. So, um, they had, they had the regular games, Donkey Kong. They had, wasn't it Donkey Kong Jamboree, I think. They had new Super Mario games, so they had the original games that people were expecting to see on the Switch 2. Um, so yeah, but I just think the Switch 2 is in a cooling down period. Um, that's the reason console sales have decreased for them. Time for the next story. Microsoft begins testing free ad-supported Xbox cloud gaming for insiders. Microsoft is taking another step toward expanding Xbox cloud gaming by launching a limited test of a free ad-supported streaming option for Xbox insiders. The new feature allows eligible players to stream select games they already own without requiring a Game Pass subscription, though the experience comes with advertisements and a 1 hour session limit. The preview is currently available only to select members of the Xbox Insider program, as being positioned as an experiment to explore more affordable ways for players to access cloud gaming. Microsoft has not announced when or if the feature will become available to the public. How the free tier works. Unlike the current paid version of Xbox Cloud Gaming, the new test allows users to stream supported games from their personal digital library at no additional cost. Timeout, timeout, timeout. If it's from your own personal library, it's not Game Pass games. Why would you just not why would you just not download the game and play it? Why would you play it on the cloud? I just don't understand that. Before each gaming session begins, players are shown advertisements. Microsoft says these ads only appear before gameplay starts and will not interrupt players once they are in game. Each streaming session is capped at 1 hour before users must begin a new session. The company says it intends to maintain a higher standard for advertisements shown through the service and wants them to feel appropriate for the Xbox platform. Lowering the cost of entry. Microsoft says the goal of the test is to reduce barriers for players who may not own the latest Xbox hardware or are unwilling to pay for a Game Pass subscription. But they said that you can only play games from your own library. So what? Is it games that you got from Games with Gold that are that Xbox One? Is it like if you uh, if you had like Games with Gold back when that was current, and you could download games like the Dead Rising remake, Dead Darksiders 3, the Resident Evil remake, you could only um you could only play those games as long as you still had a Game Pass subscription of some kind, core, premium, ultimate, whatever it was. Are those the games they're talking about? Like I said, otherwise, why not just download the game and play it? And you don't need the cloud. I mean, I could see the cloud if you were playing Game Pass games that you didn't have, but I don't understand what this free tier to play your own games that in your own library is offering. Uh, because games are streamed from servers, players can access titles on compatible devices without installing them locally. The company also believes the feature could benefit Xbox One owners by allowing them to play newer series titles through cloud streaming instead of upgrading their console immediately. Actually, they can. I that one um, that was I thought the whole reason for cloud gaming. A familiar strategy. The approach mirrors business models already seen access other entertainment services, where users can choose between a paid, ad-free experience or a free option supported by advertising. Cloud gaming competitors have also experimented with session limits and free access, making Microsoft's latest test another sign that companies are searching for ways to attract new players without requiring expensive hardware purchases. Paid subscribers keep their benefits. The ad-supported tier is separate from Microsoft's paid cloud gaming offerings. Players who subscribe to eligible Game Pass tiers that include cloud gaming will continue receiving uninterrupted streaming without advertisements and the restrictions being tested in the free version. The experimental tier is intended as an additional option rather than a replacement for existing subscriptions. A test that could shape Xbox's future. Microsoft has emphasized that the feature remains an early test and will evolve based on player feedback. The company has not confirmed whether the 1 hour session limit or advertising model would remain unchanged if the service receives a wider release. The experiment arrives during a period of significant change for Xbox, with recent restructuring efforts, Game Pass adjustments, and a growing focus on cloud gaming as a way to reach players across a wider range of devices. If the test proves successful, Microsoft's free streaming option could become another entry point into the Xbox ecosystem for players who aren't ready to invest in new hardware, like me, or a monthly subscription, also me. Yes, if it lets you play games that you don't already own, then I see the reason behind this. Um, what I would suggest though is if say this becomes public, say this gets rolled out to everyone, um, as long as you have an Xbox One or Xbox Series, if they say what I would suggest is maybe not. the maybe not the 1 hour time limit. Uh, maybe let I would say let people do cloud gaming for as many hours as they want, but have the advertisements go once every hour. That as long as it's not going to kill someone in the game, because you don't want someone on their last life, the advertisement to play, and then by the time the advertisement's over, um, you lost your last life. So whether it pauses the game when the advertisement runs, or people go, "Oh, an advertisement's going to play in 15 seconds, top of the hour." I'll pause and wait for that advertisement to play. But also another thing, if they do roll this out, they cannot go the way of YouTube. YouTube has advertisements that are just almost as long as traditional commercial breaks on television. That they can't do. We're not. So if they're going to do this, have if you want to have it every hour instead of having people start a new session once every hour, maybe do that. But don't. But when advertisements run, keep them short, 15, 30 seconds, not 5 minutes, not 3 minutes. Um, or if you've seen the advertisements, it says 90 plus remaining, and that number's not going down, but the advertisement's still going on. So we don't need we don't need advertisements that long on cloud gaming. Keep them short, and like I said, I would have people be able to uh, maybe to I would have people be able to play Game Pass games, or the games they got through Games with Gold that were Xbox One, and um, yeah, just have advertisements play once every hour instead of having people have to start a new session. Um, and if there's a way, also let players know, oh, next advertisements in 15 seconds. Um, that would be so, like I said, you could pause your game. Yeah, so I mean, this sounds awesome. This sounds great. This sounds like something Phil Spencer could have done if he really cared, or at least experimented with. But, uh, but yeah. So I mean, I just hope my suggestions are taken. Like I said though, because I mean, if you're gonna play cloud gaming, what what are you gonna stick to independent games? Because I mean, you're not gonna play a new Assassin's Creed game that you haven't played. Those take hours to play, so that's not gonna happen. RPGs you're not gonna play because those, like I said, unless you can, and I don't know if you start a new streaming with cloud gaming. Um, I don't know if that's going to be uh, like if you'll lose your progress. Like, say you're playing, what's the latest Assassin's Creed game? Assassin's Creed Odyssey, say. Um, say you do the full hour cloud gaming. That hour runs out, and your session's over, and you got to start all over. Do you lose the success that wasn't auto saved? Was there some way to say, hey, your time limit's running out, so save your game now if you haven't already? Maybe that's so these are things that I would ask Xbox to think about. Um, and yeah, but on a free cloud streaming, um, and also if it's to the like I said, the Game Pass library, because if it's just games you own, other than the ones that you can't play if you don't have a Game Pass subscription, there's really no reason not to just download the game and play it as long as you want instead of 1 hour sessions. But that's what I think. So, time to go to the next story. Halo campaign evolved headlines Xbox Game Pass late July lineup. Microsoft has unveiled a second wave of Xbox Game Pass titles arriving in late July and early August, with Halo Campaign Evolved leading a diverse lineup that also includes a new role playing game from Game Freak, a collection of classic ID software shooters, or id software shooters, and several day one releases. The announcement comes during a challenging period for Xbox following the company's recent restructuring, but Microsoft continues to bolster the value of Game Pass with a mix of major first party releases, indie titles, and third party additions. Halo returns to the spotlight. The biggest addition is Halo Campaign Evolved, which launches on July 28th for Xbox Series, PC, and PlayStation 5 before arriving on Game Pass the same day. The remake revisits the original Halo campaign with modern visuals, redesigned environments, updated gameplay systems, and new weapons inspired by more recent entries in the franchise. Players can also expect an entirely new campaign mission, enhanced cinematics, and freshly recorded dialogue from members of the original voice cast. While competitive multiplayer is not included, the game supports four-player online cooperative play, yippee, and two-player local split-screen co-op. Well, it's better than so it's that's still co-op. The the selling point of Halo is to be able to play competitively. Cross-platform play and campaign cross progression will also be available, allowing players on different systems to experience the story together. The project has generated considerable excitement among longtime Halo fans, many of whom see it as an opportunity for the series to recapture the strengths of its earliest entries while introducing the franchise to a new generation of players. New RPG from Game Freak arrives day one. Another notable addition is Beast of Reincarnation, an action RPG developed by Game Freak, the studio best known for the Pokemon series. The title features fast paced combat and an online fantasy setting, marking another opportunity for the developer to showcase a new intellectual property outside of Pokemon. Beast of Reincarnation launches on August 4th and will be available to Game Pass subscribers on day one. Classic shooters return. One moment. Fans of retro first person shooters will also have something to look forward to with Heretic and Hexen, a collection featuring two fantasy themed shooters originally developed by id Software and Raven Software. The bundle arrives on August 4th, giving players an opportunity to revisit two influential PC classics through Xbox Game Pass. I don't know about Heretic, but wasn't Hexen also on N64, or was that a completely different game? Because I do know there was a game called Hexen on N64, but I don't know if that was a shooter also. Horror, survival, and more join the library. Several additional games are joining the service through the remainder of July. The Planet Crafter kicks things off on July 21st, followed by the indie horror title Shift at Midnight on July 22nd. The action adventure game Hell is Us joins the catalog on July 23rd, while Mistfall Hunter launches on July 30th. PC players will also receive Corsair Cove on July 31st. Games leaving Game Pass. As new games arrive, several titles will leave the Game Pass library at the end of the month. Those are Back to the Dawn, Celeste, Crusader Kings 3, Mountain Blade 2, Bannerlord, My Friendly Neighborhood, Rain World, Sniper Elite Resistance, and Whiskerwood for PC Game Pass. Subscribers interested in those games may want to finish them before they leave the service or purchase them while they remain available at the usual Game Pass member discount. A strong finish to July. The second wave of July releases offers one of the strongest Game Pass lineups of the summer, highlighted by the return of one of Xbox's most recognizable franchises. While Halo Campaign Evolved is expected to draw the most attention, Microsoft's latest additions provide a wide variety of experiences, ranging from classic shooters and survival games to horror adventures and brand new RPGs. With multiple day one launches arriving over the next 2 weeks, Xbox Game Pass continues to expand its library, despite the significant changes taking place across Microsoft's gaming division. The only problem is, like I said, I don't see the appeal. I never really cared about the campaign in any Halo game, if I'm being honest. The highlight of Halo was playing multiplayer. The fact that they're not going to have it in this one is, again, I say, what's the point? Um, so I mean, they're going to have co-op, um, that split screen and co-op, four-player co-op. Great, but like I said, it's not something that I would be interested in. All these other games, Beast of Reincarnation or Book of what was the name of that game? Uh, Beast of Reincarnation. I was right the first time on August 4th. It sounds like something that I would want to try if I still had Game Pass, and I have thought about renewing my Game Pass subscription, even if it's not even if it's not $20. Um, I could at least do the $8 a month option and have access to the 50 games they offer and the Xbox One games that I got through Games with Gold. The others, like I said, Heretic, I've never played. Hexen, I've rarely heard about, so I don't know how those games are. And these other games, Hell is Us. I swear I think I've heard about that game, but I can't remember anything that I have heard about it. And the other games I never even heard of. But if any of these games interest you, that I've announced the dates that they'll be available on Game Pass, and also the games that are leaving on July 31st. If you care about any of those games, like they said, like the article said, either buy them or finish them up. Time for the final story for tonight. Gamers sound off on the biggest challenges facing the video game industry. The video game industry is facing one of its most turbulent periods in recent memory. Rising game prices, widespread layoffs, the shift away from physical media, and concerns surrounding artificial intelligence have left many players questioning the direction of the hobby they enjoy. While blockbuster releases continue to generate excitement, many fans believe the industry is struggling with problems that go well beyond individual games. Developers are navigating rising production costs, publishers are changing long standing business models, and consumers are being asked to pay more than ever before. With so many issues affecting the gaming landscape, the question has become, what is the biggest challenge facing the industry today? Rising prices continue to frustrate players. One of the most common complaints among gamers is the increasing cost of playing new releases. Several publishers have adopted higher launch prices for major titles, with some upcoming AAA games carrying an $80 price tag. Combined with premium editions, downloadable content, season passes, and microtransactions, the total cost of a single game can climb well beyond its initial retail price. The trend has sparked debate over whether modern game development costs justify higher prices or whether publishers are placing too much of the financial burden on consumers. Physical games continue to disappear. Another major concern is the gradual move away from physical media. More publishers are embracing digital only releases, and recent announcements from major companies suggest physical game disc may become increasingly rare in the coming years. Supporters of physical games argue that discs provide long term ownership, preservation, and the ability to buy, sell, or lend games. Critics of an all digital future worry consumers could lose access to purchase games if digital storefronts eventually close or licenses expire. As the industry continues shifting toward digital distribution, many collectors remain concerned about what that means for game preservation. Layoffs continue across the industry. The gaming business has also experienced thousands of layoffs over the past few years. Major publishers, including Microsoft, Sony, Electronic Arts, Ubisoft, and others, have all reduced staff despite releasing successful games or reporting strong financial results. The cuts have affected developers, artists, writers, quality assurance teams, and support staff, creating uncertainty throughout the industry. Many players have questioned whether companies have become too focused on restructuring and short term financial goals at the expense of experienced development teams. Artificial intelligence sparks debate. Artificial intelligence has quickly become another divisive topic within the gaming community. Some studios are exploring AI assisted development tools to speed up production or reduce cost. Supporters believe the technology can improve efficiency, by handling repetitive tasks and allowing developers to focus on creative work. Others worry AI could replace jobs, reduce opportunities for artists and writers, or result in games that feel less handcrafted. As the technology continues to evolve, developers and players alike remain divided over how large a role AI should play in game creation. Hardware costs remain high. Gamers are also feeling the effects of rising hardware prices. Consoles have become more expensive, while shortages of certain computer components and increasing memory costs have contributed to higher prices for gaming PCs. For many consumers, upgrading to newer hardware has become significantly more expensive than it was during previous console generations. These rising costs can make gaming less accessible, particularly for players hoping to keep up with the latest releases. Can player feedback make a difference? Although many of these issues appear difficult to solve, history has shown that player feedback can influence company decisions. Publishers have reversed controversial policies after community backlash, adjusted pricing strategies, delayed unpopular changes, and reconsidered monetization practices in response to consumer criticism. Players have also used their purchasing decisions to send a message, choosing to support companies and games they believe offer good value while avoiding products that fail to meet expectations. The conversation continues. With so many challenges facing the gaming industry, there is no single issue that concerns every player equally. Some believe rising prices pose the greatest threat, while others point to layoffs, the decline of physical media, increasing reliance on artificial intelligence, or the growing cost of gaming hardware. Many of these challenges are interconnected, making it difficult to address one without affecting another. As publishers continue adapting to changing market conditions and evolving technology, the discussion surrounding the future of gaming is unlikely to end anytime soon. Community reaction. Many gamers believe corporate decision making lies at the center of many of the industry's current problems. Some players argue that large publishers have become increasingly focused on maximizing profits through higher prices, aggressive monetization, and cost cutting measures, often at the expense of employees and consumers. Others hope that independent developers will continue to grow in prominence by focusing on quality games, maintaining closer relationships with their communities, and avoiding many of the business practices that have drawn criticism toward larger publishers. Whether those concerns lead to meaningful industry changes remains to be seen, but one thing is clear. Gamers continue to make their voices heard about the future of the hobby they care about. Okay, so yeah. I think personally speaking, I think the disappearance of physical media and becoming a rarity is the biggest problem. I do believe most. Well, I don't know about. I don't know. I was gonna say I believe publishers are to blame also because they're making the decisions like the executives. But like I said, PlayStation's also going the route of no more physical media after January of 2028. Um, so yeah, there are there are a lot of problems, um, and people have been making their voice heard, especially with I heard people canceling PlayStation Plus subscriptions when they made that um, when they made their announcement for one. So yeah, speak with your wallet. If a gaming company is doing something you like, support them. If they're not doing something you like, speak with your wallet. That's the way to get them to listen um, the soonest. Um, as for what the future holds, we'll only find out. Um, we'll only find out as time goes on. So I want to thank everyone for showing up. I want to thank you. Please give me the thumbs up if you enjoyed and subscribe and ring the notification bell. Also, there's a link in the description to join my Patreon. I'm going to be going back to working on the video tonight. That'll be released sometime tomorrow, exclusive for people who follow me on Patreon. So subscribe, join me there. You can join for as little as $1 a month. and you get an exclusive video every week, and you can vote on those videos. You get your name in the credits. So a lot of perks just for $1 a month. But anyway, thank you for watching this, and I hope to see you next time. I do plan to stream tomorrow. If I stream tomorrow, it's going to be Call of Duty Ghost. I'm going to be continuing the campaign. Until then, good night, everyone.